Welcome to my channel. I'm Screen Recorder, and today I will make a story telling The Friendly Frog. The Friendly Frog. This story is about a friendly frog helps a queen and a princess to escape a lion witch. Once upon a time, there was a tiger who had been at war for a long time with his neighbors. After many battles had been fought, his capital was besieged by the enemy. Fearing for the safety of the queen, the king implored her to take refuge in a stronghold to which he himself had never been but once. The queen besought him with tears to let her remain at his side and share his fate, and lamented loudly when the king placed her in the carriage, which was to take her away under escort. The king promised to slip away whenever possible and pay her a visit, seeking thus to comfort her, although he knew that there was a small chance of the hope being fulfilled. For the castle was a long way off, in the midst of a dense forest, and only those with a thorough knowledge of the routes could possibly reach it. The queen was broken-hearted at having to leave her husband exposed to the perils of war, and though she made her journey by easy stages, lest the fatigue of so much travelling should make her ill, she was downcast and miserable. When she reached the castle, she made excursions into the country round about. When sufficiently recovered, but found nothing amuse or distract her. On all sides, wide, barren spaces met her eye, melancholy rather than presents to look upon. "How different from my old home!" she exclaimed, as she gloomily surveyed the scene. "If I stay here long, I shall die. To whom can I talk in this solitude? To whom can I unburden my grief? What have I done that the king should exile me? He must wish me, I suppose, to feel the bitterness of separation to the utmost, seeing he banishes me to this hateful castle." She grieved long and deeply, and though the king wrote every day to her with good news of the way the siege was going, she became more and more unhappy. At least she determined that she would go back to him. But knowing that her attendants had been forbidden to let her return, except under special orders from the king, she kept her intention to herself. On the pretext of wishing sometimes to join hearts, she ordered a small chariot capable of accommodating one person only to be built for her. This drove herself and used to keep up with the hounds so closely that she would leave the rest of the hunts behind. The chariot being in her sole control, this gave her the opportunity to escape whenever she liked, and the only obstacle was her lack of familiarity with the routes through the forest. She trusted, however, to the favor of Providence to bring her safely through it. She now gave orders for a great hunt to be held, and intimated her wish that everyone should attend. She herself was to be present in her chariot, and she proposed that every follower of the chase should choose a different line, and so closely every avenue of escape to the quarry. The arrangements were carried out according to the Queen's plan. Confident that she would soon see her husband again, she donned her most becoming attire. Her hat was trimmed with feathers of different colors, the front of her dress with a number of precious stones. Thus adorned, she looked in her beauty, which was of no ordinary stamp, like a second Diana. When the excitement of the chase was at its height, she gave rein to her horses, urging them on a voice and whip, until the beasts quickened to a gallop. But then, getting their bits between their teeth, the team sped over so fast that presently the chariot seemed to be borne upon the wing, and to be travelling fast than the eye could follow. Too late the poor queen repented of her rashness. What possessed me? She cried. To think that I could manage such wild and fiery seeds. Alack! What will become me? What will the king do if he knew of my great peril? He only sent me away because he loves me dearly and wished me to be in greater safety. And this is the way I repay his tender care. Her piteous cries rang out upon the air, but though she called on heaven and invoked the fairies to her aid, it seemed that all the unseen powers had forsaken her. Overwhelmed the chariot, she lacked the strength to jump clear quickly enough, and her foot was caught between the wheel and the axle tree. It was only by a miracle that she was not killed, and she lay stretched on the ground at the foot of a tree, with her heart scarcely beating and her face covered with blood, unable to speak. For a long time she lay thus. At least she opened her eyes and saw standing beside her a woman of gigantic stature. The latter wore naught but a lion's skin. Her arms and legs were bare, and her hair was tied up with a dry snake's skin, the head of which dangled over her shoulder. In her hand she carried, for a walking stick, a stone club, and a quiver full of arrows hung at her side. This extraordinary apparition convinced the queen that she was dead, and indeed it seemed impossible that she could have survived so terrible a disaster. No wonder death needs resolution, she murmured, seeing signs so terrible awaits one in the other world. The giantess overheard these words and laughed to find the queen told herself dead. Courage, she said. You are still in the land of the living. Though your lot is not improved, I am the lion witch. My dwelling is nearby. You must come and live with me. If you will have the kindness, good lion witch, to take me back to my castle, the king, who loved me dearly, will not refuse you any ransom you demand, though it were the half of his kingdom. I will not do that, she replied the giantess, for I have wealth enough already. Moreover, I am tired of living alone, and as you have your wits about you, it is possible you may be able to amuse me. With these words, she assumed the shape of a lioness, and taking the queen on her back, bore her off into the depths of a cavern. She anointed the queen's wounds with an incense, which quickly healed them. But imagine the wonder and despair of the queen to find herself in this dimmer land. The approach to it was by 10,000 steps, which led downward to the center of the earth. And the only light was that which came from a number of lofty lamps reflected in a lake of quicksilver. This lake teemed with monsters, each of which was hideous enough to have terrified one far less timid than the queen. Ravens, screed owls, and many another bird of evil omen filled the air with harsh cries. Far off could be espied a mountain, from the slopes of which there flowed the tears of all helpless lovers. Its sluggish stream was fed by every ill-starred love. The trees had neither leaves nor fruit, and the ground was covered with briars, nettles, and rank weeds. The food, too, was sharp as might be expected in such a horrible climate. A few dry roots, horse chestnuts, and horn apples. This was all the fare with which the lion which appeased the hunger of those who fell into her clutches. When the queen was well enough to be set to work, the witch told her she might build herself her hut, seeing she was fated to remain in her company for the rest of her life. On hearing this, the queen burst into tears. "Alas!" cried, "what have I done that you should keep me here? if my death, which I feel to be knife, will you any pressure that I implore you to kill me, I dare not hope for any other kindness from you, but I do not condemn me to the sadness of a lifelong separation from my husband. But the lion which merely laughed at her, bidding her cry her tears, if she would be wise and do her part to please her, otherwise she declared a lot would be most miserable in the world. And what must I do to soften your heart? Replied the queen. I have a liking for fly pastries. I have a liking for fly pasties, said the lion witch, and you must contrive to catch flies enough to make me a large and tasty one. But there are no flies here, rejoined the queen, and even if they were, there is not enough light to catch them by. Moreover, supposing I caught some, I have never in my life made pastry. You are therefore giving me orders which I cannot possibly carry out. No matter, said the pitiless lion witch. What I want, I will have. The queen made no reply, but reflected that no matter how cruel the witch might be, she had only one life to lose, and in her present plight, what terror could death hold for her? She did not attempt to look for flies, therefore she sat down beneath a yew tree, and gave way to tears and lamentations. Alas, my husband, she cried, how grieved you will be when you go to fetch me from the castle and find me gone. You will suppose me to be dead or friendless. How I hope that you will mourn the loss of my life, not the loss of my love. Perhaps the remains of my children will be found in the wood, with all the ornaments I had put to please you. At sight of this, you will not doubt any more that I am dead. But then, how do I know that you will not bestow on someone else the heartfelt love which once belonged to me? At all events, I shall be spared the sorrow. At all events, I shall be spared the sorrow of that knowledge. See, I am never to return to the world. These thoughts would have filled her mind for a long time, but she was interrupted by the dismal croaking of a raven overhead. Lifting her eyes, she saw in the dim light a large raven on the point of swallowing a frog, which it held in its beak. Though I have no hope of helping myself, she said, I will not let this unfortunate frog die if I can save it. Though our lots are so different, its sufferings are quite as great as mine. She picked up the first sticks which came to hand, and make the raven let go its prey. The frog fell on the ground and lay for a time half stunned, but as soon as it could think in its froggish way, it began to speak. "Quack, quack, beautiful queen," it said. "You are the first fairy soul that I have seen. My curiosity brought me here." "By what magic are you endowed with speech, little frog?" replied the queen. "And what people are they whom you see here?" "I have seen none at all as yet." "Are the monster with which the lake is teeming," replied the little frog, "were once upon a time in the world. Some sat on thrones, some held high positions at court. There are even some royal ladies here who were the cause of strife and bloodshed. It is these latter whom you see in the shade of liches, and they are condemned to remain here for a certain time. But of those who come here none ever returns to the world better or wiser." "I can quite understand," said the queen, "that weak people are not improved by merely being thrown together. But how is it that you are here, my friendly little frog?" "I came here out of curiosity," she replied. "I am part fairy, and though in certain directions my powers are limited, in others they are far-reaching. The lion witch would kill me if she knew that I was in her domain." "Whatever your fairy powers," said the queen, "I cannot understand how you could fall into the raven's clutches and come so near to being devoured." "That is pretty easily to explain," said the frog. "I have naught to fear when my little cap of roses is on my head, for that is the source of my power. Unluckily, I had left it in the march when that ugly raven pounced upon me, and but for you, madam, I should not now be here. Since you have saved my life, you have only to command me, and I will do everything in my power to lessen the misfortunes of your lord." "Alas, dear friend," said the queen, "the wicked fairy who holds me captive desires that I should make her a fly pasty. But there are no flies here, and if there were, I could not see to catch them in the dim light. I am like, therefore, to get a beating which will kill me." "Leave that to me," said the frog. "I will quickly get you some." Thereupon the frog smeared sugar all over herself, and the same was done by more than 6,000 of her froggy friends. They then made for a place where the fairy had a large store of flies, which she used to torment some of her luckless victims. No sooner did the flies smell the sugar than they flew to it, and found themselves sticking to the frogs. Away then went the latter at a gallop, went the latter at a gallop, to bring their friendly aid to the queen. Never was there such a catching of flies before, nor a better pasty than the one the queen made for the fairy. The surprise of the witch was great when the queen handed it to her, and she was baffled to think how the flies could have been so cleverly caught. The queen suffered so much from want of protection against the poisonous air that she cut down some cypress branches and began to build herself a hut. The frog kindly offered her services. She summoned round her all those who had helped in the fly hunts, and they assisted the queen to build as pretty as a little place to live in as you could find themselves in the world. But no sooner had she lain down to rest than the monster of the lake, envious of her repose, gathered round the hut. They set up the most hideous noise that had ever been heard, and drove her so nearly mad that she got up and fled in fear and trembling from the house. This was just what the monsters were after, and a dragon who had once upon a time ruled tyrannously over one of the greatest countries of the world, immediately took possession of it. The poor queen tried to protest against this ill treatment, but no one would listen to her. The monster laughed and jeered at her, and the lion witch said that if she came and din lamentations into her ears again, she would give her a sound thrashing. The queen was therefore obliged to hold her tongue. She sought out the frog, who was the most sympathetic creature in the world, and she wept together. From the moment she put on her cap of roses, the frog became able to laugh and weep like anybody else. "I am so fond of you," said the frog to the queen, "that I will build your house again, though every monster in the lake should be filled with envy." Forthwith she cut some wood, and a little country mansion for the queen sprang up so quickly that she was able to sleep in it that very night. Nothing that could make for the queen's comfort was forgotten by the frog, and there was even a bed of wild thyme. When the wicked fairy learned that the queen was not sleeping on the ground, she sent for her and asked, "What the power is it, human or divine, that protects you? This land drinks only a rain of burning sulfur, and has never produced so much as a snatch leaf. Yet they tell me fragrant herbs spring up beneath your feet." "I cannot expand it, madam," said the queen, "unless it is due to the child I am expecting. Perhaps for her a less unhappy fate than mine is in store." "I have a craving just now," said the witch, "for a posy of red flowers. See if this happiness which you expect will enable you to get them. If you do not succeed, Such a thrashing as I know well how to give is surely in store for you. The queen began to sweep, for threats like this distressed her, and she despaired as she thought of the impossibility of finding flowers. But when she returned to her little house, the friendly frog met her. "How unhappy you look," she said. "Alas, dear friend," said the queen, "who would not be so? The wish has demanded a posy of the most beautiful flower. Where am I supposed to find them? You see what sorts of flowers grow here, yet my life is forfeit if I do not procure them." "Dear queen," said the frog tenderly, "we must do our best to extricate you from this dilemma. Hereabouts there lives a band of my acquaintances, a kindly soul. She moves about more quickly than I do, and so I will give her my cap of roses, and with the aid of this she will be able to find your followers." The queen curtsied low, it being quite impossible to embrace the frog, and the latter went off at once to speak to the bat. In a few hours, the bat came back with some exquisite flowers tucked under her wings. Off went the queen with them to the witch, who was more astonished than ever, being quite unable to understand in what marvelous way the queen had been assisted. The queen never ceased to plot some means of escape, and told the frog of her longings. "Madam," said the latter, "allow me first to take counsel with my little cat, and we will make plans according to what it advises." Having placed her cap upon some straw, she burned in front of it a few juniper twigs, some capers, and a couple of green peas. She then croaked 5 minutes. Then she completed the rice, and having donned her cap again, she began to speak like an oracle. "Fate, the all-powerful, decrees that you must not leave this place. We will have a little princess more beautiful than Venus herself. Let nothing fret you. Time alone can heal." The queen bowed her head and shed tears, but she determined to have faith in the friend she had found. "Whatever happens," she said, "do not leave me here alone, and be fair with me when my little one is born." The frog promised to remain with her, and did her best to comfort her. So this is the part 1 of the storytelling, The Friendly Frog. So last but not least, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, like my video, share my video, and click on the bell. Okay, so when you click on the bell, remember to turn on the notification, okay, so that you can receive the immediate notification when I upload a new video. So comment below for anything you want to tell me, or any opinions regarding my video, or any topic or story you would like to see on my next video. Feel free to comment below, and we'll see you on the next video on the storytelling, The Friendly Frog part 2. And bye.